You're Not the Boss of Me by Tom Seast. Kids. When I was a kid back in the 60s and 70s, one of the expressions that was commonly tossed around was the phrase, "You're not the boss of me." This phrase was often tossed out when an individual child felt threatened or coerced into behaving a certain way, or was given orders or directions to do a certain task. Children can often find all these potential sources of authority to be confusing. Teachers, religious leaders, parents, guardians, peers, police, other adults. To add to the confusion, due to the problems associated with living in the society, kids were given the task of determining whether the person claiming authority or boss status over them actually indeed had this authority as granted by themselves, their parents, or their guardians. School. Once we started aging and progressing through schooling or education, we were less likely to use the phrase, "You're not the boss of me," because it didn't sound grown up enough. So, the language of claims of authority changed to more sophisticated statements or questions like, "Who died and put you in charge?" Also, because we extended our mobility and were likely to be in more varied situations rather than with parents or guardians, we now had to account for new expanded claims of authority like friends, family, businesses, property owners, our thoughts, and our conscience. Adults. Growing up, or optionally aging, into the age where we become adults, we were exposed to an entirely new group of people that claimed authority over us in varying ways. Community, government, government agencies, religious organizations, licensing or certifying agencies, professional organizations, and unions. Claims of authority. How does someone become the boss of me? Where do they get that authority? People or organizations generally make these claims based on one of the following: legal authority, formal authority, mob authority, authority based on age, social authority, communal authority, elected authority, authority by acceptance, authority by competence, charismatic authority, authority by coercion, financial authority, divine authority. Legal authority. Most governments and their respective agencies will claim to have authority over people either in a geographical area, by place of birth, or by consent. This type of authority is often questioned as to its origin. Formal authority. Some people consent to be subject to authority in certain business relationships. As an example, in most cases, an employee is subject to the authority of an employer. A contractor might also be subject to the authority of their client or customer. Mob authority. Many people claim that the majority, the larger mob, should rule and have a boss relationship over the minority, smaller mob. So, individuals get caught up in these groups depending on how each mob defines itself. In any case, this form of authority is often combined with coercion to establish authority and compliance. Authority based on age. Put simply, some people believe they have authority over other individuals based on their being born 1 second or more after you. As someone that is often told to act my age, this form of authority claim is often confusing because it often relies on uncertified forms of age like appearance and behavior. Social authority. Some people will claim authority in social situations because someone has to be in charge. In many cases, this authority is established without consent, but without concern as well due to the passing nature of the relationship. Most people don't care who is the boss in situations like this. In many cases, authority is established in these situations based on implied authority from other situations. Communal authority. In many tribal or communal situations, authority is inherited by families. In other situations, authority is consented to and agreed upon by the entire group. So in these situations, authority is often consensual. Authority by acceptance. Any individual can give authority to any other individual or organization based on their own motivations or desires. In things like agreements to marry, formation of business partnerships, establishment of business relationships, these forms of authority are often established via consent, but with stipulations for disagreements. Authority by competence. Some people spend extended periods of time studying specific subjects and either obtain licensing, certifications, or degrees based on their efforts. In some cases, these certifying agencies require continued education to maintain certification or licensing. Often, this authority is expressed in an attempt to gain authority over another individual that has a lesser pedigree and is often accompanied with implications regarding competence on specific subjects. While many people seek to establish relationships with people citing this type of authority, others are forced into non-consensual relationships based on this type of authority. Charismatic authority. Some people tend to develop a group of followers based on their personal traits, such as looking beautiful or handsome, their intelligence, their integrity, or their actions. These people are often persuasive speakers and can have a hypnotic effect on their listeners. Authority by coercion. Some people or organizations simply claim authority by exerting physical force over other individual groups. In some cases, this is done with consent. For instance, I may agree to fight someone else in some form of physical duel or with some other form of violence with a promise that I'll be the authority if I win the day. In some cases, this coercion is undertaken without consent of both parties. Financial authority. Many people claim authority over others because they are paying their way through some circumstance, either experience or time period. So, since they are paying or paving the way, they claim authority to manage and set expectations for that experience. Divine authority. Many people will recognize the authority of some divine being in their lives. And as an example, most Christians believe that God has some authority in their lives. Are you the boss of me? It is not my responsibility to determine who is the boss of you, nor do I make the claim of that responsibility. If you're reading this, you are likely an adult that can think for themselves and develop their own understanding on the topic. Some may even imply or state that I don't have authority to draft this document and publish it. In any case, I hope to maintain a respectful relationship with you and only establish authority on a consensual basis when necessary or warranted. Be well.